Hello everyone, David Duvak. Welcome back to YouTube. If you like this channel, like, comment, subscribe, and also check out the link below all my previous videos. Hopefully you enjoyed the previous video we made the other day in regards to a proper walk-around inspection of a typical training aircraft. Unfortunately, the weather wasn't conducive for flying once again here in New Jersey, so I figured I'd show you this fixed base simulator I use with students from time to time, and myself, for proficiency's sake. This is a fixed base simulator. It's got variable aircraft that you can use for multi-engine, single engine. Also is stocked with variable cockpits. We have a analog cockpit, which you see here. This is a mock-up of a Piper Twin Seneca. And we have everything from Cessna, from 172 to a Corvallis. We have everything on the Piper line, from a Piper Seneca, Piper Cherokee. We even have a Tomahawk in there. Everything up to the Piper Meridian, or the Piper Meridian turboprop aircraft, which I've been using the Meridian quite a bit recently for training for my next job, which I'll talk about in future coming videos. So I'm going to simulate a flight today from Old Bridge Airport, as you can see on the screen here, to the infamous Flying W Airport, a favorite place we go to get lunch every now and then. And before I go over the whereabouts of the flight, I'm going to show you all the little things here associated with the sim. So this up front here is your cockpit that shows all your instruments. Down here, what we call the Instructor console, is a multi-screen. It's got all your essentials situated near the floor and near the lower side of the panel. And I can use the More button to program all types of weather scenarios and failures. So it makes good practice with instrument students, and makes good practice during emergency training where we're simulating all types of failures. And I'll probably simulate some in flight today in this sim. The More button is also used to change aircraft. And as I mentioned, all the line of aircraft we have, in addition, we have this side stick here, because some of our customers own Cirruses, and we bought this intentionally so they can duplicate that during their training. And just like the actual aircraft, we have a control yoke. You go forward, you're pitching down. You go backwards, you're pitching up. You're banking right, banking left. We have rudder pedals like in the actual plane. And just like the actual plane, the lower portion steers the nose on the ground. Then the upper portion deals with operating your brakes. On the control yoke itself, you have what's called a pitch trim button, which changes the up and down movement of the airplane. As you'll see on the nose wheel, it changes when I touch the button like so. And you can also feel it, but my preference is just to use the electric trim button. We also have a flap actuator button, which you can touch it along the console like so, or you can use the button like so. And we have dual equipped engine controls. Because we do a lot of multi-engine rehearsals in the simulator too, we just leave the engine controls set for one airplane. So the configuration is the same for even the single engines too in the simulator. So I'm going to simulate some checks that I usually do before I go flying. So I'm going to go about my pre-takeoff checks. I'm going to bring the powers forward about 1800 RPM. And these blue knobs are called the propeller pitch knobs. They deal with changing the propeller position from one position to another. So I have to exercise these in the real airplane. And I'm looking out for any abnormalities, excuse me, by doing so. All right, and then I'm looking for a recovery on the RPMs, a change in manifold pressure, and fluctuations in my oil pressure. Once more. And then, just like the real airplane, we're checking the ignition, or the magnetos, rather, for any abnormalities. All right, you see a drop in RPM usually when you hit those switches. Then I'm checking my annunciation lights. And as in the real airplane, they light up like they should. And then cross-checking my engine gauges. And also checking my electrical gauges. My battery amperage looks good, both sides. And normally that would conclude your pre-takeoff check during your inspections there. So Now we're ready to go fly. So now I concluded the pre-takeoff safety items. Now as far as getting to our destination today, we navigate with means of this electronic flight bag. This is an application called ForeFlight. As you see, I have both airports listed up here on the map. With some sims, this one included, you could load the Wi-Fi from the simulator room to your iPad so you can track yourself on the iPad. But because we're just simulating a flight today, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to fly the way I would in the actual airplane. So we're going to take off from runway 6 at Old Bridge Airport, and I'm going to turn kind of a west direction, probably cruise at 2,000 feet, and I'm going to configure for an arrival at the Flying W Airport. It's about a 31-mile flight, probably get there in 20 minutes, so I'm going to show some features of this sim as we're progressing along up at altitude. So let's get going. I'm ready if you guys are ready. I'm going to undo the parking brake, and then I'm going to advance the throttles forward. And just like the actual plane, you get your feet ready because the airplane will try to get off the center line for you. So we got maintain center line. The airspeed's coming alive. We have green engine gauges. And this sim's real sensitive. I mean, I wouldn't have to give it this much pressure to stay on the runway. So there's 90 knots. And I'm pitching to stay above blue line. And just like in the actual twin, I tap the brakes and I'm going to raise the gear. As you can see, we're maintaining the runway direction, and we're adjusting the speed so we stay over the blue line. The blue line, a multi-engine airplane, is the best single-engine climb speed. That's our safety speed in the event if we lose an engine somewhere. As you can see, the visibility is not the best in the simulator. That's because I have it programmed for conditions a little less conducive than visual flight rules. All right, so I'm going to start turning on course. I'm going to change the heading bug like so, which is this dial here. And I'm going to set the throttles and mixture controls for climb power. About 30 inches, I know, about 2,400 RPM-ish for this airplane. Alright, so we're making the left turn, going on course to Flying W. And we're at 1,300 feet. We're going to go up to 2,000 feet. Okay, we've got 500 feet to go and 10 degrees to go approximately to our course. So there we are, 300 feet to go. Get rid of the fuel pumps. Still monitoring the engine parameters. And we got 200 feet to go. Flaps up, gears up, cow flaps is open. And then, just like in the actual airplane, around 100 to 50 feet before we level off, so we're going to rest the nose on the horizon, just like so. And normally in the actual plane, you'd have a nose to visualize how your horizon should be outside the plane. Because we're in the simulator, I use the instruments. So the attitude indicator is going to be my main means to figure out what's my horizon. So if it's even with the blue and brown like how it is, I'm probably in good shape. And I can verify that by looking at my other pitch instruments. That's the airspeed, altimeter, and vertical speed indicator. I'm speeding up pretty good, so I'm going to come back on the throttles and prop controls. We'll probably bring the throttle back to about 28 inches. And we can leave the prop settings the same. We will bring the mixtures down to conserve some fuel. Probably bring these back to 9 gallons an hour. Okay, we're chugging along here at about 150 knots. I'm going to close the cowling flaps, which those enable cooling to the engine during climb performance. So now we're at altitude, 2,000 feet. You can see our track on the GPS right here. And we're doing approximately 160 miles an hour in true airspeed. And I'm going to change some settings just to have some fun. We'll change the visibility to a picture perfect day here. Here we go. Now we can see everything. We can see Philadelphia if we try. We can see New York City. We can see everything. This is what a good picture day would look like in a perfect world. Alright, so we're chugging along at 2,000 feet. And right now we're operating what's called visual flight rules. We can see the horizon ahead of the airplane. We can see all the landmarks below. We also do a lot of instrument flying scenarios in the simulator, which I'll set up here in a moment with the More button. Instrument flying deals with flying the aircraft by sole reference to the instruments. But for visual flight rules' sake, we could do things such as rehearse navigation like we are now, and what we call air work. That's, variable maneuvers and such. We also, again, use the simulator for emergency drills, which I'll simulate a drill right now. So I'm going to close the throttle. Bam, I just lost an engine. So I want to think autopilot off, 6 sticks forward, keep the airplane under control. Identify dead foot. I got no weight in the left foot, so identify dead foot. It's probably the left one. Yeah, I pulled the throttle back, but I want to know for sure it's the left one. So I'm going to verify left engine secure with the left prop, and get rid of the gas on the left engine. And now I have complete control with just one engine only. Now, as long as I'm over the best single engine climb speed, blue line, I am safe. As you can see, it requires some work, but a multi-engine airplane can fly just fine on one engine. And then if I was doing this for real, I would turn off the fuel items. So now I'm going to run through an air start where I'm going to bring the prop lever, mixture lever somewhat forward, throttle on the left dead engine somewhat forward. We're going to feed fuel to the left engine, and we've got to start it just like so. All right, left engine on. Prop forward. There we go. And we have the left engine back and running. Simulators are finicky too. Sometimes it takes a little extra effort to get results you want. All right, bringing the left engine back to where it was, even with the right engine. So that's how you go about a simulated air shutdown and start. Another emergency I could simulate, a little more. I could simulate variable failures of my instruments. So we do that by going to the instrument page. And if I want to simulate failing the GPS, I could hit the GPS failure button like so. And at this point, I'd be navigating with means of my other map or landmarks. But I'm going to unsuspend the GPS, and anything I want to fail is in that selection right here under the More button. So we're going to fix our altitude, come back on the power here. We are gain some altitude and fast. It'll bring the propeller levers back to where they were. Roughly 2200 prop RPM. Mixers back where they were. And I'll power back to 2900. So there's some common emergency drills that we practice in the simulator. Of course, you can see airports. If you look on the left screen, that's McGuire Air Force Base. Normally we want to stay away from them, but because we're simulating only, we can, we'll consider ourselves legal to go through the airspace. So that's McGuire Air Force Base, situated at Ricetown, New Jersey. And just for fun, I'm going to change the weather here. So we're going to go to More. And we can simulate unsmooth flight conditions by enabling some turbulence. Now, this sim is not in motion, so I promise you the screen's not going to go nuts when I simulate this, but we'll go to level 5 or level 7, which is pretty good turbulence. As you can see, the airplane is shaking around a little bit because I programmed a good level of turbulence here. And I can change extremes by bumping it up some more. That 10 is the max. Now, as you can see, the turbulence is getting pretty good here. The airspeed's shaking. But that's how we go about that. And I'm going to change the sky conditions by changing the visibility back to where it was before. Now I got about 2.5 mile visibility. That's what a bad summer day would look like in New Jersey over the beach in the middle of the summer. And we're going to throw in some rain. And then to simulate an actual instrument flight, I'm going to lower the cloud deck to the point where we're almost in the clouds. So now we are in complete instrument flying conditions. You can't see a thing outside of the window. And for that purpose, I'll simulate an instrument approach so you can see how that's done. We're going to commence an approach into the Flying W airport, and I'm going to load the plate on the iPad. And I'm going to set the aircraft so I can fly the aircraft hands-free. Alright, so we're going to simulate what's called an RNAV approach in runway 1 at Flying W. So I'm going to load that on the aircraft's navigation system via the GPS. So we get back on course. And we're going to activate that approach by selecting it here in the GPS console. We're going to get the RNAV 1. And we'll do it from this waypoint called the Beeve. And we will, load it. Now we're back on course. And the approach is activated. So now I'm going to turn the aircraft direct to that waypoint called the Beeve. And I'm going to fly to the point. So the Beeve is a waypoint that puts us on the final approach structure to that approach. Just trying to get a better view of it here on the screen. There we are. Direct to the Beeve. It's 26 miles away. And I'll leave the power set as is. Remember, the way you shoot an approach is that you read what's on the plate as shown here on the iPad. You brief all your variables on the briefing strip, and you note frequencies you need and things like that. And then you note how you're supposed to fly it, which in our case we're going to the initial fix called the Beeve. So you have an initial approach fix, intermediate approach fix, and a final approach fix. That's where you begin the approach. You have an intermediate part of the approach, and then you start ending the approach somewhere around the final approach fix. So in our case, we're going to the Beeve. Actually, I'm going to change it up. I'm going to take one that's a little bit closer. We're going to close that. Let's take the RNAV 19. That probably is a better approach. So we'll load the RNAV 19er. Select approach. Oops. Okay, so we're going to take this approach, being it's a little bit closer to the airport. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to join the final approach course over there at Cillian. And I'll go direct. There we go. Go to the screen there, get what we need. Alright, it's going to be about a 90-degree turn to Cillian intersection. And we're correcting for altitude. We're going to power back for airspeed. We got GPS mode in. And we got a message from the GPS. We got LPV, so this is a lateral precision approach. So we have both a directional guidance as well as vertical guidance. So for those who don't know, a precision approach in instrument flying is an approach that takes you literally to the runway. In this case, this approach takes us, literally to the runway. And the minimums is 415 feet above the ground. That's going to be altitude at which we should begin seeing the runway once we break out of the clouds. If we don't see the runway, then we have to execute a missed approach. So I'm going to descend to the lowest published minimum for this approach during the en route phase of 1800. And I'm going to wait till I get interception of the final approach course. 232. It's going to be 205. 205. So when that nav instrument centers, I'm going to join the final approach course to the runway. So I'm waiting for it to center. I'm about 2 miles from that reporting point. I was going down to the lowest minimum for the en route part of the approach of 1,500 feet. And I'm going to correct about 10 left. Alright, it's telling me to go direct 191 on the GPS in 6 seconds. And I'm going to see my primary navigation needle move eventually. So I'm going left to 191. There comes the needle moving. And after Sicilian, I can proceed down to the minimum. So I'm going to 191, as the GPS told me to do. And I can start proceeding down to the minimums very slowly. So what we want to do is now get the vertical portion, the glide slope as we call it, and instrument flying to stabilize here. So here I am on the course. And I'm going to run through some of my pre-landing checklists. So I want fuel pumps on. I'm going to go ahead and throw the landing gear down. I'm below the safety speed to do that. So I'm 1,000 for 403. Oh, wow, I see ground. That's great. I have 3 green, setting the engine controls for landing. I'm slowly getting the glide slope back, which will enable me to come in on a good stable approach. If I was doing the whole approach with the glide slope down to the wall, as we call it, I'd be in a position where landing wouldn't be very ideal. Okay, so I got 200 feet to go. Corrected for course. It's staying on 1 mile from the runway. I'm almost at my minimum, so there's 450 feet. The minimum's on plate's 402. I look up, there's a runway. Now I'm in a safe position to land. So I got my flaps, gear set. Power's good. I'm going to maintain a speed above blue line, about 5 knots over blue line. Okay, we're relying on runway, gear, everything's set for landing. Looking good. Speed is good. It's runway 19 at Flying W. And I want to touch somewhere first through the runway, so I'm just going to hold the nose. And we're down. I'll correct for the center line, because you always want to be on the center line. And we're at Flying W, situated in Medford, New Jersey. And I'm going to slow the aircraft down by using the brakes. And we're here. Now, we'll shut it down by first securing it. And we're going to shut the engine off by closing the mixture knobs. You'll see the engine's shut down. And then we'll turn off the electrical items by getting rid of the the radios and what have you. So we use the radio master to turn that off. And we turn off the additional fuel items, magnetos and fuel pumps. And we turn off all the lights and the battery. That's that. Thank you for watching.
That was a nice flight.
Thank you.
Yeah.